Patrick, thank you very much for this opening, and I'm very excited to dive into a conversation with Jakub because, as Patrick mentioned, I live in China right now, and so nobody talks about anything else than the war between Ofo and Mobike. You know, because they are now pretty big companies in terms of valuation at least, and in terms of the reach and how many bikes they put on the streets. And so when I learned that you are actually going to be leading the expansion to Czech Republic and maybe potentially even somewhere else, who knows? I was super excited to even join this event and to have a discussion with you because I think it can be interesting for many people. Before I start asking the questions, and we will start with the grilling, can you just introduce yourself? Because Patrick mentioned that you started ekolo.cz and you were kind of the evangelist for e-bikes here in Czech Republic, and you have been in this, for 10 years, I guess, more than 10 years. So could you just introduce yourself, what you're currently working on, and apart from Ofo, of course.
Yeah. Okay, well done. Thanks a lot for invitation here. We meeting at perfectly right time, because right now, right today, the Ofo really started. So the first 40 something bikes appears in the streets, and there's something to celebrate because more bikes are on the way. About myself, this year it's been 10 years since we started ekolo.cz, which was also startup at that time. I think 10 years ago it didn't really, there was not such a startup hype, so we didn't call us as the startup, but it was. We started in a totally empty market where no one knows what e-bike is. And so I spent about 8 years to explaining to people e-bike is not for fat people, e-bike is not for lazy people, it's just a transportation tool. So this year it finally pays off. So we have an enormous increase of the interest of e-bikes. Let's say our turnover doubled since 2015. So the question is why in such a conjuncture, maybe? Who knows? In such a good time to add something to the current business, which really makes me busy. Actually, the reason is there was an opportunity. Before even I started with the e-bikes, I was already quite keen on the all kind of the, let's say, clean transportation, whatever silly the word is. I think about 2005, 2006, the bike sharing started in Paris. It was first big European station-based bike sharing there, and I was in Paris just 1 year before that, and it wasn't a biking city, not at all. Maybe on Champs-Élysées there was one bike lane, but that was it. 5 years later, I went to Paris again, like 4 years after the Velib started the operations, and they already have had about, I don't know, 10,000 bikes in the streets. The city changed completely. There was a biking infrastructure, it didn't exist before. And I was like, wow, okay, we want something like this, maybe the e-bikes will help. But after a couple of years I find out, it wouldn't go so fast. And it was just the power of the number of bikes which appears within the streets of the city, which will actually makes the people use them and push the municipalities to do something for it. Because many people, when I asked you, why you don't bike daily a bike in Prague, what would you say?
There's no bikes.
Okay,
No
good
bikes
point. We can solve this. But most people do say it's dangerous.
It's dangerous.
Yeah, because of the cars and everything. Oh, wow. Actually, it is not. But
Not in China.
Well, in China,
Nobody
slightly
thinks it's
different.
dangerous, I guess.
Yeah. But to take off this threat of biking, is the infrastructure. Because if you have a separated infrastructure for biking, you would feel 100% better. You would definitely start to use it if it's not raining, if it's too cold, and so on. And if it's not too hilly, you know, we can get to this. You know, there's a solution for everything. You know, if it's cold, take a dress. You know, if it's too hilly, take an e-bike. But you know, if it's too dangerous, just stay home or take a cab. So it's like this is all about infrastructure. And when there was an opportunity to start to speak to someone who is quite strong in the bike sharing and you know would like to penetrate you know the entire world, let's say, to they is actually thinking you know about to offer bikes you know every corner in the world. Well, you know I asked them whether Prague may be their target, and they said yeah, well, why not?
Everybody loves Prague, right? So that might be one of the reasons in
They
China.
They
in
like
China,
they like
everybody-
the Prague Square,
But,
which is not in Prague then.
So you say that you asked them. So I think very interesting point, or maybe a learning for everybody else who might be interested in bringing some of the Chinese startups in the future to Czech Republic or to Europe. How do you get in touch with these guys? Is it easy? Just send an email, or did you meet one of the co-founders somewhere? How did this happen?
Firstly, you know, I start to talk to different Chinese startup for dockless bike sharing. It was a bicycle, you know, white bikes, but they are very small. They are in Xiamen, you know, the southern city. Because they already have some, you know, mock-up of the electric shared e-bike, and you know, I was very interested in that, so I find them. You know, we met somewhere, but they were, you know, too slow. They were a bit, you know, not so financially sound.
Yeah.
And then it happens that the offer this spring they start to search about some manufacturing within Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So and Jakub my friend who is actually working in an e-bike business as well, asked me whether I could meet them and you know help them with some ideas, because there are a couple of companies here still in Czech who are actually you know completing or manufacturing the bikes. And so it happened. So that was the first contract. I don't think they did close any agreements yet. Still, all the bikes are made in China, which is actually a bit crazy, because there is something which is called an anti-dumping. Maybe some of you knows what it means. So it means like the Europe is trying to protect its market with the bike manufacturing. So any bike which is brought from China gets 48.5% of tax, which is a lot.
That's a lot.
So all these bikes, you know, they were like taxed somehow. So well, I think sooner or later, you know, even the offer or any other bikes supposed to be completed in Europe somewhere. And so it's happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and also there is the fact, you know, when you're talking about bringing the bikes from China, all the way from China, right? Like, you know, one of the reasons why bike sharing became so big in China was because of the environmental, you know, protection kind of thing, you know, that they wanted to improve even the pollution in the cities. And so when you think about it, the footprint, when the bike needs to travel to Czech Republic or to Singapore or other places where they are, and it's kind of, isn't it? What do you think about it?
Okay.
Because people always bring it up.
Because we trade with China for past 10 years, so I'm quite aware of this. You know, there's nothing more pollution producing than the cargo ships who are you know cruising from China to Europe. I'm quite aware of this. There are some calculators online where you can get you know 1 TEU, which is the unit, how much it actually gets, and you always pay some surcharge to the basic price, you know, for the so-called protection. This is like when you pay the airlines more, that they will plant the trees for you or something. I know that, but like in a bicycle business, like I'm sorry, but there is no other option. You know, all the parts. You know, if you walk in our shop, if you walk in any bicycle shop, and if you pick any bike, whether it costs 2,000 euro or 200 euro, you know, most of the bikes, let's say 95%, will be made of Chinese parts, or the parts made in China by the Taiwanese companies, by the Japanese companies, Shimano, Tektro, and so on. So you could not refuse it, and there is not such a difference, you know, if the product is actually assembled in China, in the factories where, you know, many operations are done by robots nowadays. I've been last year to giant factory in Kunshan near Shanghai. It's like, yeah, wow, industry 4.0, this is it. What we're talking about is there. But you could also send out the parts, you know, and find someone to assemble it here. And it's already happening because, you know, there's a big Chinese-owned actually factory in Romania, which is actually assembling the e-bikes for the EU market, and it's already cheaper. The labor cost is cheaper than on the East Coast in China, somehow. But yeah, this is like this. The environmental impact would be still there since we start to weld the frames so cheap.
Okay. And one of the things that you mentioned at the beginning is that one of the problems why people don't use it is that there is not enough bikes, or people actually said that, right? That there is not enough bikes. Do you think that we're gonna see something as crazy as is happening in China, that you have so many bikes on the street that people just throw it, you know, everywhere they can, and then they need to employ other people just to make sure that the bikes are where they are supposed to be and stuff like that? Do you think that we're gonna see something like that in Czech Republic or in Europe in general before the adoption is actually going to happen?
I hope not. We will try to do as much as we can not to make the situation. Actually, the Chinese thinking is a bit different, you know, because, you know, if they see if it works, you know, let's do the same. So it happened that, like in Shanghai, nowadays you have about 30 companies who do the bike share. So you have yellow bikes, white bikes, pink bikes, whatever bikes there. And so there's a huge competition, and of course the public space is not implantable, so they just should fit all of them. In Europe this would not happen because the cities, they know it already. And in each city there is a slightly different regulation, but there is it. I just went back from Milan 2 days ago, where the OFO is one of the strongest in Europe, and there's also a mobile actually. And the city is issuing a license, and they issue 3 licenses, and each of them was for 4,000 bikes. For some misorganization reasons, the mobile gets 2 and OFO only 1. So there's about 8,000, not yet, but will be 8,000 mobikes and 4,000 OFO bikes.
Okay.
But the Milan is close to Prague, it's like 1.48 million people, but including suburbs it's much more. So it's somehow comparable, and it's not like in China that you are actually, you couldn't cross the street because of the hills of bikes. Not at all. And the part of the agreement with the city is that, you know, they will have, they call them marshals, you know, the people, if you're playing golf, you know what is the marshal, you know, he's someone who is watching you, if you really can play and if you do well. So the marshals are actually looking after the system, so it's not bad, and the bad bikes, the damaged bikes should be displaced from the roads, and so on. So it works quite nicely, I would say.
Yeah, actually in Beijing, you're mentioning the regulation. So in Beijing, that they stopped it already. They don't allow new bikes to come on the street because it's just crazy, and it's in these big cities in China everywhere. You know, even in Shenzhen, I've taken countless of pictures. You know, where it's just like bikes on a big. Even in a lake, or like people just throw it everywhere.
You know, Hansa, what's really bad? That, you know, the news, they like their horror. Okay, so if there was something in the news we saw here, it was this pictures about the hills of bikes, you know, and you know it threatened the people from the cities. So there was a discussion right now at the Prague Municipal Hall, and they are like people who never been to China, who doesn't really know anything about the system. They are just we have to stop it because you know something really bad is approaching to us. There will be hills of bikes, you know, this kind of feeling, you know. And there was some article about the OFO last week, and again the editor he picked this picture, you know.
Yeah, of course.
The shot of bikes. So well, it's definitely not.
Well, but it's not happening here because you said you only have 40 right now.
Okay, we already disclosed the numbers. Okay, I will tell you what will happen here. There's no secret. We try to go as slowly as we can. We are deadly pushed, you know, from the. Actually, we don't dealing with China. We dealing with Vienna.
Okay.
In Vienna, there is a headquarters for CE, and there's a huge amount of bikes in the storage in Vienna, and they're pushing us to take them all. And I'm like trying to stop it and say like, yeah, step by step. So today we make 40, tomorrow we may have 60. We have 300 bikes here at the moment.
Okay.
And we count it, and it's pretty sufficient for the very beginning, which we have in Prague 7. Because so it happened that I try to make some deal with the Prague Municipal Hall, because you know to do it without knowing the city, this is coming up, it would be too risky. So I try to get in touch with the officials at the municipal hall. There was actually no answer. So we make a deal with Prague 7. You know, the Prague 7 is pretty, you know, hipster suburb, let's say, and they are really supporting the bikes. They painted a lot of bike lanes in the past. They make the 30 kilometers in a side streets. So it's quite safe and it's quite nice to bike there, and it's not so big. So we could learn a lot, you know, from this area. It's about 5.4 square kilometers only. So with 300 bikes, it would be perfectly serviced, and we would see what happens, you know, till the end of the year, so till the snow or something.
So right now you can only use OFO at Prague 7.
Actually, you could use OFO anywhere. So I drive here on this bike. So it's not like, you know, when you hit the border, you know, it tells you.
No,
something.
I mean, if you park in here, how does it work? Like, can you just park in here?
Yeah. And there's there's something to feature.
Yeah.
Okay, all the system of the dockless bike sharing is based on this stuff on the back wheel. So it's called a smart lock. So this device actually works with the 3G network. In a near future, it will work on the Internet of Things network. So NB-IoT, something what Vodafone is actually starting next week or in 2 weeks' time. And it works with GPS. So the cloud actually knows where all the bikes are parked, and where the bike is parked outside the area. We call it the geofencing. So there was built a virtually geofence around the Prague 7. I could still use it, but once I lock it, no one else can pick up the bike. We have to go and grab it and bring it back to the area, because right now we are in Prague 1. You know what is the attitude of Prague 1 with the bicycles. Did you heard about the ban which is now coming up in a center? If you don't, I tell you, it's a very short story, but it's a very sad story actually. We all remember the segways, right?
Yeah.
You know, and the segways were banned last year. It was quite pretty banned, you know, with all these street signs, crazy. But the agencies, they very quickly switched from the segways to kick scooters, to electric kick scooters, which are actually even more powerful than the segways. They are faster, they are more dangerous. And there is a funny Czech law, or actually it's not even a law, it's an amendment to the road code, which is saying that the kick scooter is the same like a bicycle, which is pretty nonsense. This only exists in Czech, nowhere else. And there is also written that when you put a 100 watt motor on a bicycle, it's still a bicycle, which is not, you know, in EU it's 250 watts, so it's just 1/4 of it. So, and this smart guys, actually, they combine all this together. So you can see these Hugo bikes and you can see these Harley bikes all around Prague. There are hundreds of them already. And the agencies nicely replaced the segways, which are banned, and they still use it for the tourists, and tourists love it because they don't need to pedal, you know, they just and go. So, and of course, it threatened the people, and they use the center, they use the Wenceslav Square, they use the Old Town Square with them. And the Prague one, who is looking after this public space, and actually the public space doesn't belong to the municipal hall, it belongs to the district hall. They say, okay, so we ban it, but isn't that a bike? Do we like the bikes? Not really. So we ban the bikes. Okay. So now all the bicycles are banned in many areas. You could check on the internet. It's like is the entire so-called Golden Cross. So the bottom of the Wenceslav Square, the Old Town Square, part of Patriska Street, Celetna. You know, many parts. So, and there's no way how to avoid this. You know, only you could go on a riverbank, which is very busy. You know, cars, trams. So, and it will start to affect in next days. So it's like it's really approaching, and so it will be valid every day, like from 10 o'clock in the morning till 7 afternoon, whatever. So this is like what Prague one is thinking about the bikes. But I ran away from the question a bit, so sorry. But
no, that's okay.
This is quite important. Why we are trying not to have the offers in Prague one, because we know the current municipal hall leaders' attitude to bicycles, and we didn't really want to play with the fire. So and probably the center of Prague, it will be very different from all other cities where OFO is. The center of Prague will be not serviced by OFO for some time.
So if somebody is going to take the bike from Prague 7 and leave it, you know, in Prague 1, what does it mean? Like, are they going to take it, or?
No. It stays there. We will see it. We get the marshals or the operation manager will be noticed, and he should send a car to pick up the bike and bring it back.
But that's your responsibility.
Of course.
Yeah.
And if someone would do bad to us, you know, could bring all the bikes to Wenceslav Square, do what you want.
Okay. So you mentioned Prague 7, 300 bikes. So, and at the same time, you mentioned that they're pushing you to take all of that from Vienna. So, what's the plan? So, are you gonna be slowly releasing like different areas, or like launching different areas, or you don't have a plan yet? You're talking to the government. What needs to happen first so that we can see OFO everywhere?
We will only support the service in the area where there is an interest from the municipal hall. You know, we would not go to fate like what's happened in Munich. This is quite a sad story. There is another, maybe not unicorn yet, but a quite large dockless bike sharing company called O-Bike. You may know them. It's from Singapore, but they're very strong in Europe. And they started servicing Munich about 6 weeks ago, but they did it in a brutal force way. So they took 4,000 bikes and they penetrate the entire Munich. Have anyone been to Munich last few weeks? Have you seen them?
Yeah.
Everywhere?
Yeah.
Okay. Do the people like them?
No.
No. This is what happens. Yeah. So they make the penetration. They don't answer emails. Maybe they don't even have any email there. They just put the bikes on. And the municipal hall, because the Germans, the Bayerns, they're very clean, and you know, they're proud of their city. So they start to, you know, remove them, because you know, it's not nice for the public space to have so hordes of bikes. Even the customers, even the people, you know, who should be happy, you know, to have more bikes in the streets, they were not. You know, they didn't make the attitude towards it.
Yeah.
So for that reason, we would really go slow, part by part, and we should be accepted, loved maybe even by the municipalities. And so I think we could jump to Prague. And so right now we have three more municipalities who are actually, we talking about, how many bikes, where they could stay, how they could be serviced, and so on. But probably all of this happen not in the winter, but next spring. So let's say March next year, you can see much more of us in Prague.
What's the biggest problem for you to make this happen? Is it the government? Is it that people are not used to it? You need to educate the market because there is not so many bikes on the street. Like when you go to China, and I use these things, when I'm in China, I don't use it that much, but I use it, and it's super convenient. Like it's really convenient. You take it, it's everywhere, and you just leave it there. And you can go to the bar, you can go anywhere else, but it's always there. But here, that's the problem, that you don't see those even the other bikes that much.
Yeah.
So what is the biggest problem for you in terms of execution? In this business right now.
Exactly. This is a trick of that business, that the bikes should be everywhere. So you walk out of the house and you turn your head around and you see the bike. So you walk there, you scan it, it makes click and you go.
Yeah.
So any more actions like to do the geocaching, for the bikes, which may be around 4 corners, or even you walk there and the bike is not there because it was already taken by someone, or some playing with the chain, some accessing some numbers. It's too long. The beauty of the cycling in general in the city is that you go from A to B. There is a great magazine in UK. It's called A to B magazine, and it's about the city biking because only due to this you are the fastest. So from our office to here on this bike, 12 minutes in Holešovice. Maybe if I go by tram, the general ride would be shorter, but I need to walk the tram, I need to wait for 5 minutes, then the tram is staying somewhere, so I need to walk again. I would be definitely slower than that.
Yeah.
So, but you need to have the legacy to leave the bike in front of that building for someone else, and you need to find them. So the number of bikes in the streets, this is what threatens the municipal people, is necessary, but it shouldn't be too much, and the number shouldn't be too low. So we need to find some kind of balance, and this balancing is one of the goals we have right now. Of course, we have troubles with the people. We need to find more people to service the bikes, to surveil the bikes. We only give them the 2 months job right now, so it's not very easy. There is a 0 or maybe even a negative unemployment rate in Prague right now. So to find people is not is a big issue, and also a bit I have to look into the kitchen serviceability of some parts of the bike, which is not so easy. We get about 8 different tools for the bikes yesterday, so we checked them today. Only one fit.
Okay.
The others, we just put apart. Yeah.
So you like to figure it out yourself.
As you said, it's a startup, and we will figure it out. And
it's a Chinese startup, right?
we are the cycling guys, so we will find a way.
No, it's funny. Have you done some calculations, because you mentioned there must be a lot of bikes on the street that you go out there, you find it, you take it, and then you leave it. How many bikes do you need so that this can happen? In Prague, like, is it those 4,000 bikes in total? Is it more? Have you done some calculations, or have you looked at that, or not at all? You're just gonna learn as you go.
There is a competition sitting out there. So no, it's no.
So we can work together on achieve those numbers.
There are some calculations, but each city behave a bit differently.
Okay.
What I think is a number which will be able to service like the wider center of Prague, including the center once we will be allowed to do the service there as well. It's about 3,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's much less than in China. You know that I mean like Shanghai, it's only about 4 million bikes, maybe something. I heard some figure like this, but I think the public space looks a bit different. You know, the streets are much wider, and you know the area as well. So I expect the 3,000. It's something what will fit well for Prague, and then we could grow a bit to some outskirts. So we will see. But this is like you know, let's say 1 year plan.
Mm-hmm.
Even everything in this business goes pretty fast.
But they could have it here tomorrow if you tell them.
Well, but then we will follow up the example of Munich or
Munich,
for
which
London or
okay.
something like this, and this is
You
you
don't
know
do that.
you know I would like to keep it on the market for a while. So just
Got it, makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the business because you know, I remember when I was here last time, we had an event and you know, somebody was asking about these startups, and at that point I didn't even know that OFO is coming here. And I know that I personally, because I have a lot of friends talking about your competition, right? They're sitting over there probably, as you mentioned. They were talking about the competition, that they're using it, my friends, a lot of my friends using it. But you know, when I think about that as a business, it's kind of hard, right? Because you know, like not everybody is using it. Probably doesn't cost so much money, but you still need to get the bikes out there. You need to do some sort of promotion. You have some team operations and stuff like that. So that's one side, right? That's the scale side. And then when you look at China, on the other hand, which the scale is incredible, millions of bikes, tens of millions of bikes. And then you hear stories that they actually take deposits, they invested into real estate, you know, they don't actually make money on riding, you know, on charging for the rides. So what's the business here in Czech Republic? Because probably we are not going to hit the scale as in China, that you could actually have millions of Czech crowns or RMB, whatever you're going to be charging, you know, in deposits. So
Okay.
so what's the business here?
so first of all, there will be no deposit,
Okay.
not at all.
Okay, good to know.
But I remember in China, you know, it was a
Yeah.
big issue that you need to actually deposit how much? 200,
This one is 200, mobile is 300.
300
RMB.
RMB.
Yeah.
So let's say 1,000 crowns, you know, was blocked on your credit card or Alipay or
Yeah.
whatever to use the bike. So in Europe it's different. You need to put in your credit card credentials and you could go. The actual price of using OFO in Prague right now is 0. So there's a pilot period which ends up by the end of the year, or I always say according to the weather conditions. So if there will be a coverage of snow, we will probably take the bikes back to storage, because it would be, with that hard tires, it would be very hard to drive on cobblestones,
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
And then after we agreed on 10 crowns for 30 minutes. So
Okay.
it wouldn't be for free, like you know, all the municipal systems are free. I faced today on the street with one older lady who asked, you know, whether it will be free for 50 minutes. I said, no, it's for free for good now, so you could take it for 2 hours. And then, no, I want 15 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes for you. But I think 10 crowns, it's pretty cheap, isn't it? So
It's cheap.
yeah, it's like, yeah, and you scan it, and then, you know, when you finish the ride, you see how much you get charged. Out of this money, you know, if you make a calculation, you really need the bikes to be turning.
Yeah.
I afraid I couldn't answer to real business figures,
Mhm.
even you would be interested in them, how it would be in the overseas. I think even for the headquarter of OFO, this is some kind of trial. Now this is the time of penetration. So be there first, be there before mobile, be there before the others, and you know, picking how to say,
The flag.
putting
Yeah.
the flags. Yeah. Well, after that, the thing is, the bikes are quite cheap. They doesn't look like, but you know, if you see that these bikes are produced in millions of pieces, so they are cheap. Even the communication device, which is there, and okay, there's a GPS, there's a 4G modem, whatever, the communication. Again, it's just the GPS is $1. It's just a piece of some
And it's scale,
software.
right, in China,
And
manufacturing.
it's beautifully
It's
scaled.
millions.
So it means the low price of the bikes, which are robust enough to survive the cruelty of the users, plus the number of users. For many people in China nowadays, it's a primary way how to get to work, or at least how to get to some hub like metro station and so on. The number of the taxi drives were lowered since last year of 40%, I heard. So then the business starts to make sense. But I think we are quite far from this situation to happen. We would be losing money for the first 2 years, let's say.
Of course, like, you know, it's in this startup world, you know, even Uber is still losing money, right? And it has been around for a while. And probably even Amazon, I don't know if they make money, but it's, you know, it's not about this, like, when you start making money, but when it starts making sense, you know? I mean, like, the numbers, like, how many rides per day do you need to have so that, you know, you can hit the scale, you can start, you know, not making money per se, but actually saying, yeah, this makes sense to be in Prague and to probably strive for being #1 on the market because it can double, triple, you know, it can quadruple, and then it's gonna probably be at least break even.
Yeah. I don't have such a calculation. I only can tell you the number which is now in Milan.
Mm-hmm.
So in Milan, each bike is driven 8 to 10 times a day.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, it's free now. Okay,
Yeah.
once it gets paid, it will be about 40 cents, I think, 40 euro cents per 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So maybe this number will be lowered to half. So it's still 4 or 5 rides a day. So each bike makes you €2 a day.
Mm.
But then you have 300 drivable days, let's
Mhm.
say, in
Mhm.
Milan. So if you make it, it's €600.
Mm-hmm.
The
Which is
value,
definitely more.
the value of this bike is not 300, 600 euro, not at all. Maybe
I heard some rumors in China that Mobike is around like 700 RMB to make. Is it possible?
I don't know. I don't know.
You know?
Honestly, I
And you know, but you know how much this costs, right?
not really.
Don't worry, I'm not gonna.
I can tell you that Mobike is much more expensive than.
It is
Yeah.
actually. You know,
For the audience, if you know the Mobike, you know the major competitor of Ofo.
yeah.
It's the bike which is on a smaller wheels. We have a Beamer, but we don't have the slides. But anyway, it's 24-inch wheels. This is 26, and the entire bike body is made of like one structure. There is a shaft drive. There is not a typical chain, and the bike is very robust. You know, the problem is it's very heavy.
It is.
It's even much heavier than
And it's
this
very
heavy
small
bike.
actually, so I cannot ride it. It's not really comfortable.
So, but I like it, you know, the design is very catchy, but when you start to drive it, the Ofo is much better than.
Yeah, I agree actually. And I haven't even I haven't tried this one. I tried the very cheap version of Ofo. That looks, you know, it's completely different. It probably doesn't, you know, even you know, you cannot really have it on the street for a long time because, you know, it can get damaged very, very easily. But it's much more comfortable.
It never damages itself, you know, it's always the user who does.
Well, of course, right? But it's probably gonna happen, I guess. Well, do we have a problem with this here? You know, we have been in this business before. You know, I mean, e-bikes, and there is, you know, there are some players on the market right now. Do we have a problem with people, users damaging these bikes right now?
Yeah. Any system, any public system ever started has to undergo, you know, this initial period of the cruelty of users. Let's say I remember I already mentioned the Delhi in Paris. You know, the first week there were about 20 bikes to be found in Sena. You know, someone just throw them there because it was fun. Then you know, the guys, you know, they were driving them down to the metro, you know, on the escalators, and such a stupid things. In Milan, I was totally disgusted about, you know, some activities like the bikes. You know, what could you do here? You know, this really, you could really take off the grips, you know, make a hole inside the saddle. Maybe fun, but in China it's different. You know, but when we launched the service, like for the media, 22nd of September, Car Free Day, Tianchi Zhang, the one of the co-founders of OFO, was here, and we have quite a long chat, you know, about this, and he told me, well, it's not in China anymore like this. So my first question was, you know, how come the bike is not stolen? It's just standing on the street, so it's very fragile. You just take it and you go. And he said, like, why? No, there are so many bikes around, so why should I do it? Okay, fine. This is point one. Point second is the misusing of the bikes, since there is no such a war between the companies, because usually the people who work for the other company destroy the other bikes. You know, just throw them to the street and so on. I hope it would not happen here. You know, at the end, you know, each city has to undergo this period. So we started today, so I could tell you tomorrow, you know, how many bikes survived this night. Maybe. There was a nice comment on the novinky.cz, the Czech news server, when we launched it. There was some discussion guy asking, how long does it take to take away 300 bikes? A question. And then the people were like, 2 days, 1 day, overnight, whatever. So we will see how it goes. There is one important thing. Of course, the OFO is playing with the investors' money. The investors are waiting for some return. So there is some internal KPI, how big this destruction may be. And all the country managers are like, you know, playing with this number. And if the destruction will be too high, they have no problem just to say, Prague, sorry, let's go to the next city. And this is something what I really don't want to be happening. So we are trying to keep an eye on the bikes and, you know, investing to people, investing to servicing and so on.
Actually, you know, you mentioned China. So in the biggest cities like Shenzhen, where I live, and Beijing, it's not happening that much anymore. But I saw some videos online about smaller cities that are much less developed, and they put the bikes on the street, and like immediately after it, people were actually taking it home. But this is very interesting. I was talking to my Chinese friends, and they said, like, yeah, you know, this is happening, but you know, those people actually then took the bikes and brought them back, because they probably realized, like, yes, you know, I can have it at home, and maybe I can take that off, and I can just ride it myself, right? But then you will realize that the convenience is not there anymore, because you cannot just leave it and take another one, you know. And so it's interesting, again, like, you know, different points of views and how people perceive that. First they see the big value in it, or like a couple hundred RMB, I don't know, but then they realize that the convenience is even, you know, the value of the convenience is even larger than just having the bike at home. So it's happened, you know, so it's a very interesting case.
It needs time, you know, like the private locks on the bikes. It was very common thing in China, and then the marshals were coming with the big hammer, you know, and they just they made them free. This all will definitely happen, and we should be mentally prepared for this. So if you will ever see an OFO bike, you know, which has a problem, just there's one button in the app which is like, you know, let us know. And if you let us know, there will be something popping up in the nearest marshal a mobile phone and he will approach the bike and he will fix it. So please help us. And this is how it works in Milan very well. So the people are actually really reporting to problems with the bikes because they starting to feel them as theirs. That was another interesting thing. The people one day they find out it's actually good for them, like the bench in a park. Okay, if there is not a bench, I couldn't sit down. So if there are no bikes, they are all destroyed. So there will be no bikes anymore. So in China, for example, I know there are many people who are actually like collecting the bikes from the bad spots, and bringing them back, and they getting to points. So that's what I wanted to mention. Even in China, they have no deposits anymore, or very little. They also have a free ride. So most of the people.
It's very cheap.
Because it's very cheap. It's like 1 RMB per hour. But there are many people who actually earning the money on the service because they helping the service to move the bike from place A where the bike supposed not to be because it's not so much rented there or so, and they could open the app and the app will tell them, okay, if you move this bike over there, we give you 1 RMB back.
Yeah.
So something like in States there was a drive away service. So if you drive the car for someone, you actually only pay for the petrol, but you just drive the car for someone. You did a favor to other. So actually this entire system, if you check the Facebook website, the Facebook site for OFO, this is not a cycling company. This is an internet company. This is really there is a really IT cloud behind, which works with some artificial intelligence clouds systems. I couldn't even name it because I'm not really into it. But the system is trying to help itself because with so many bikes, you couldn't have so many people in the streets to look after them. So the system makes the users to keep the system in a good shape, which is beautiful. And there is also a quite nice time-lapse video from Shanghai, which is like you see during the day, like 24 hours, all the moves of the bike. And this is like a spermogram of very healthy young guy. Everything is coming up there.
No, that's interesting. And actually, you're mentioning it. I just came from China, from Hangzhou actually, and Alibaba had a big conference there. And Alibaba, I know it, so they're one of the investors. I don't think that they're. Is it Oppo? Alibaba, or Tencent is mobile. So Alibaba is also Oppo. Yeah. And so they actually, as you said, Alibaba has a cloud and they kind of link it together and they support it and big data and all of these things. But again, that's China, right? That's the scale. But Czech Republic, again, do you think that what's going to be the benefit of these things when we only have a couple hundred bikes on the street? Do you think that it can have some benefit, or how do you look at that? Or is it more a community thing?
Absolutely. There is an internal function which is called a heat map, so where the bikes are driven most.
Okay.
There's one of the benefits from the city is that OFO is actually offering its data to the municipalities. So because you are tracked all the time, so when you drive the bike, your ride is tracked and it's stored in the cloud. And so very easily we could find out, the most popular traces within the city. And so this is something what could be definitely used from the bikes, and even with few hundreds, you could build up some data. This is already existing. There is a cool application from a company called Umotional. It's called Praha na kole, interestingly, and it prepares you to best way on the bike, which is not actually always the right according to this yellow sign somewhere, but it's calculated with also some artificial intelligence according to the others. So when the others find this way useful, it makes you the routing if you go this way through this path. So that's something what OFO can develop dramatically better, because okay, a few hundreds, maybe a few thousands in the future, if the bikes will be all around the Prague, the municipal hall will exactly know where to build infrastructure first, because there are most people driving every day, and probably there is something missing for them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a couple more questions, and then we are going to give room to the audience so that they can engage in a conversation with you as well if they have some questions. I have maybe two more questions. So many people kind of mention the local competition here, that even the Czech market is when actually we posted the event, like many people were talking about it. So Czech market is known for the fact that you have like super localized services, like the local services actually, and then some big guys try to enter the market. I worked for Foodpanda before, so I was in the same situation. We were basically competing with Dameigo, and we didn't make it. And then Dameigo was acquired by the big company. So do you think that the similar destiny, let's say, is there for Ofo, that you are not going to be able to compete with the local competition because people are just not used to big players? Or they don't want to.
No,
they don't want to use that.
I think it's very important to know, to say that the local competition, to what Vitek and his team did, it's fabulous. And I have to say, the first thing when I learned about Ofo was that we went for dinner and with the founder of Ricola, and so I've told him what's made happen. That time I was not 100% sure if it will happen, because nothing was signed up. But the problem is that you only can do such a large-scale service if you really have money for it. And there is some investment in Ricola, and I understand, but there is actually much more power behind this company. And on many markets, like in Milan, you have nowadays 5 different bike sharing companies who are like playing on the same cent. So I think we could we could easily have Ricola and Ofo to be like playing together, because there are many people who pay in advance for the Ricola service. Mm-hmm. So they are like prescribers, and those are people who are probably driving the bike every day during the season. Mm-hmm. And for them, the Ricola would be cheaper and more convenient. Okay. The Ofo is generally only for the, let's say, the rides, like now I need to go somewhere fast. Oh, there is a bike. Okay, I have an app, so let's use it. So something what is not so fragment on a daily basis. We will see what will happen. Mobike already make some announcement. It's planning to go to Prague. There is another player who is from the advertising field, which is called Velonet. The company Billboard is actually behind them. Those are the guys who puts all these flags on the big boards along the Czech highways. So they are not so much loved, I would say. No. And there is another startup from Brno. It's called the Futu Pilot.
I know these guys. They actually went to China. Yeah.
You know these guys, but they already announced they will be live in April. Then they make it for September. Okay. It's October now, so we will see what they gonna bring. But yeah, I think I'm very thankful for Ofo, because out of the big, this is the best. And so this is the best what we may have in Prague. Okay.
Well, you mentioned the subscription service of Ricola. Actually, in China, I don't know if Ofo is doing it, but Mobike has the same thing right now. That you can actually pay for like 3 months in advance, mm-hmm. and it's ridiculously cheap. Actually, you can pay like 15 RMB, and you can drive, unlimited rides. And so I don't know if it's some sort of promotion or what it is. They're testing the market again.
It's only the promotion. Okay. Yeah. What's the business behind this? Probably the RMBs.
Well, in China it's probably different.
The RMBs from the users. it's not the catch. The catch are the users, you know. How many outdoor advertising have you seen in China lately? Not so many as before, because the people don't pay attention to this anymore. Everybody keeps staring to the phone all the time, everywhere. So, what is more valuable than an app which is needed to be used to unlock and to lock the bike? The app which knows who you are, the app which knows where you are, and what are some of your preferences. This is very valuable, actually. So this is how the investors actually think of. So in China, there is a slightly different offer application for the Chinese market. It's a full of advertising. And especially when you finish the ride somewhere and you are in front of KFC, you have very big probability there will be some coupon for the KFC, change it from the small French fries to the large French fries, something like this. And this is how the service works business-wise. So there are few apps who are actually grabbing the positions of the bike from the mobile and offer and display them, but there is no official API from offer. But you are not able to unlock the bike with any other application but the official one.
Yeah.
So that's it. Maybe it will work the similar way even here. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's it from my side. Let's have a look at some questions.
Maybe
You
you
wanna
was
ask
about to ask about the e-bike.
Sorry?
Maybe you was about to ask about offer e-bike.
I don't know. Is there anything like that?
You didn't ask. So
Well, so I'm asking now. So are they planning to introduce some different model?
yes.
Okay.
And this is something what takes my heart because I'm the e-bike guy.
Okay.
Let's say when I reach here, you know, I make it in 12 minutes. On an e-bike, I may make it in 6, which is the first thing. But my first way was to the bathroom, and I need to clean my face because I was really sweating. It's quite hot out there today. Prague is very hard to drive on a normal bike. We all know that.
Mm-hmm.
There are few cities which are very easy to drive on a normal bike, like Milan, like Vienna, like all the cities in everywhere, Munich. But there's a solution for Prague as well, and which is an e-bike. And it's funny how it works because there are few e-bike sharing systems in the world. Has anyone been to Madrid in last 3 years? Maybe. Nobody. Have you been to Madrid? Have you seen the e-bikes there? Many. 1,650 e-bikes out in the streets. Every month about 80,000 euro. What the municipal hall has to pay only for the maintenance. And there are enormous money which comes from the advertising as well, but you know, it's quite crazy to keep up such a service because there are the normal bikes, normal e-bikes, let's say, with the battery inside, and there is no minus temperatures so often in Madrid, so it's easy to keep up all year round. And well, they have a station, so they're charging inside the stations. How to make it? How to make e-bike out of this bike? So it would be very complicated. And it has actually very easy solution. You know, there are some hubs, and this hub could be actually easily changed for the electric hub, for the electric motor. And you have some energy which is easily fitting to the pocket. Something like the not a mobile phone, but a power bank. So if you combine those two things, you have an e-bike. So this year at Eurobike, which is the largest cycling show in Germany, there are a few models of the stationless shared e-bikes already, with some hole here in the basket, some hole here on the side. So you just have your own battery, which you charge at home, you put it in, and you go. When you finish the ride, you take the battery, empty probably, you put it in your pocket and you charge it at home again. easily. And the bike could survive the cruel winter outside because the battery, which usually gets empty when it's minus temperatures, release the minus temperatures for a long time, it's in your pocket very spot.
But what about the range?
The
If
range
it's just a small battery.
The electric motor, the hub motor, doesn't actually break you when you go. So such a bike will be a shared bike, or when you put the battery in, it will become an e-bike. When you put the battery out, it will be the heavier shared bike again. So there is no difference actually. There will be one system of one bikes, and they will have some option of insertion of battery if you do have it.
And if you put the battery in, like how do you ride it? I mean, is it for 5K or it just helps you a little bit, when you go up the hill?
It wouldn't be like a normal e-bike.
Exactly.
It wouldn't be so powerful. The battery capacity will be definitely much lower than a normal e-bike battery.
Yeah.
But the distance which you usually drive on a shared bike, it's about 1.5 up to 2 kilometers within the city. On a shared e-bike, it's about 5 kilometers. Even the battery of, let's say, 100 watt hours, this is like 3.3 watt hours, so 33 watt hours is a mobile phone, so like the battery of the size of 3 mobile phone batteries would take you for 5 kilometers easily. And this is something what you need. And this is the difference between the gets wet on the way from the riverbank to Davidson, which on this bike will be quite demanding.
Okay.
Even there are gears. There are 3 gears.
So it's ready.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's get to the questions because we have some there. So
Wow. Okay.
competition. So I think we are going to spend some time on the competition. So what about local competition? Do you think about partnerships?
Yeah. Why not?
And we had some conversations already.
Yeah. Like. I don't know what to say. We need to talk. So it's why not? It's I think the hardest part is the maintenance. So if we can join maintenance together, maybe I don't know. Close. I don't know at the moment, but why not?
Okay. What about the electric version of? Okay. So that's what we talked about. The plan for it. Okay. So
okay,
the plan
is that there is already some sample of it.
Mm-hmm. Even here?
No.
Not here.
No, in Beijing.
Okay.
It will be tested over the winter, and if we wouldn't have so many destroyed bikes, there is a promise we may be one of the first markets where the e-bikes will be implemented.
Okay.
Maybe.
So you will have to have some baijiu with Yangxi, right?
I'm pushing him too.
Because that's how it's done in China. Okay. So we have this one. Then, do you plan to launch in other Czech cities, for example, Brno?
No.
No. Just like that.
No plans for this. Actually, this is something where my deep feelings for Ricola are. So Ricola are very well established in other Czech cities, and OFO will definitely not be digging into them, not in near future, let's say. And there's also some not very big, but there are some subsidies from the Ministry of Environment for the bike sharing, just released a couple of weeks ago, which is also nothing for OFO, because OFO is not actually applying for any EU subsidies, as far I know. But so I think there are others to service those cities. For the China, let's say, there's a Prague and there's nothing else so far.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes
Got
sense.
it. Okay. So that's the plan.
Mm-hmm.
So how much do you know about the situation in China? Because somebody asked about OFO and Mobike merger. Didi, Uber, because we talked about it before, right? Because in China it's a big topic right now, and I was thinking about it and like kind of sharing some point of view on this. And you even told me before we started this interview that you think it makes sense, and it's true, right? Like just why you should be battling each other, fighting each other when you can join forces and be one company that is going to be probably the biggest in the world when it comes to bike sharing, right? So what do you think about this for everybody here?
Yeah, I only heard what you read in the news. I have no background information.
Yeah.
If I would have, I wouldn't tell you anyway. But yeah, as I told you before, it makes sense because at the moment actually two companies. Where is Ofo? The Mobike is there, very soon. So I do expect till the end of this year the Mobike will make an entrance to Prague as well, because it's not actually it doesn't have a logic really. Why to go to the city which already is penetrated, while I have so many other cities in Europe which are still empty. But this is something about the Chinese mentality you may be aware of, so we should show our strength as well. So but the war on price really makes no sense. They started on a 50 cents actually in Milan. Now it goes down to 40, and probably they told me they have to make it even cheaper, for the beginning, because the Mobike started at 30 cents.
Okay.
So if they will fade, they would not hear. So it's that makes sense. Definitely, those two platforms would not disappear. There are so big investments, in both types of bikes. Let's say like Mobike and Ofo. Actually, Ofo has wider variety of bikes. If you check the website, whatever it's looking stupidly, but yeah, the website it's czid.ofo.com. It will be better over time, but now it has many errors still. There are a gallery of bikes, and there are about 10 different bicycles displayed, which are used all over the world, mainly in China. For USA market, there is a different e-bike a bit. In Australia, there is also a bit different e-bike. Ofo was just launched last week in Israel. Also, Israel has its own mold, its own model for bike. Yeah. So there is kind of gallery.
Cool.
Something more?
So Slovakia.
Slovakia.
What about Slovakia?
That makes sense. Yeah. If you think Prague is non-friendly city to cyclists, go to Bratislava. That's my answer. So no plans yet, but it made logical sense. Like for the e-bikes, actually, the Czech companies penetrated the e-bike market in Slovakia. So actually, there are only the Czech brands in Slovakia at the moment. So the federalism works this way. Yeah.
And so, just one question that is kind of linked to this one. So when Ofo is expanding overseas, do they have a person like yourself in every single market they're at or in? Or they have, as you said, in Vienna, they have like a CE headquarters, right? You said, right? And they kind of had everything from there.
Yeah, it works the exact way. They have some local influencer, or the person who knows the environs a bit, and helping to build up the local market. And then once the company is established, it may have some hired people from the market. But it works always with local people.
Yeah,
there's
that's good.
The only Chinese stuff which is within are the, let's say, the interpreters. So usually some Chinese students who know the local language, who know the Chinese, because there's many communication with the HQ in Beijing, and it's much easier for the people in the headquarters to speak Chinese. So
got it. Okay. Can you give a brief introduction of a Prague team? Yeah, I'm looking for some talents to join, right?
Perfect.
So you can actually hire somebody here, maybe.
Okay, the Prague team is still looking for the operation manager. Okay? It's actually someone who is looking after the marshals and looking after the expansion as well. So this position is now open, and if you want to apply, I pass you the recruiter contacts. No problem. It's not my responsibility to look for them. My responsibility is to look for the people who are on the streets and who are maintaining the bikes, and we still need them. But I don't think if you do like walking.
But you were the person that put the team together.
Yeah.
Right?
At a moment, yes, but you know, I am a big exemption because I am not an OFO employee, and I probably won't be. Because I still, you know, as I told you at the beginning, you know, our company is booming now, and what is my mission is to help to this company to penetrate the market, help to do the movement, so the people start to understand how to use the bike, start to use them, not to destroy them, bring more bikes to Prague, make the people aware about the city cycling and so on. And then build a team, obviously, otherwise it wouldn't work. And then I may step away. Who knows? This is still pretty open.
Okay. So next question: which marketing channels are you planning to use to promote OFO in the Czech Republic or Czech market?
This question already was from Marketing and Media magazine, and I was laughing a bit. And today we got about 3 questions from some newspaper and from some marketing agency, from Radio Frequentie 1. Everybody wants to make a marketing for us. All right. Well, you know why Billboard is so much willing to have a station bike sharing in a city? Because the bikes are beautiful billboard itself. Or it's not a billboard, but it's something what's very visible in a public space. So I don't really think, you know, these bikes do need to have some marketing, because they are marketing themselves. We did something today. The citizens in Prague 7 find in their post boxes some leaflet. You will get the leaflets in your bags as well, and there is a description how the system works. It costs something to produce it, but this is probably all the marketing we do have at the moment. Maybe later on, like the global marketing of OFO is actually using some, let's say, some goodwill activities, like the singer Rihanna. You may know, you may not know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that she has some fund, and it's really good in Mali, in Africa. She's actually paying tuition to girls to go to school, and then she found out that the girls, even, you know, they could go to school. It's so far away that they wouldn't, because, you know, to walk there every day and to walk back will be too demanding. So she bought them bikes. And the OFO is actually subsidizing the cost of the bikes for the girls to go to school. Isn't that nice?
So that's why she did the advertising for them. Because she took a picture. Rihanna took a picture with
OFO
bike.
She didn't make so much advertising, you know. She was pictured with the bike. And
well, that's a good advertisement, I would say, right? Rihanna. I think that's good, right?
Okay.
No matter how they did it. But cool. Okay. Well, there are some more questions. I actually like the one on the bottom. So, how are you going to try to solve the problem with infrastructure?
Well, yeah, of course, we couldn't solve the problem with the infrastructure, you know, unless we buy some red paint and we will go out to make it, which already happens in some cities, you know, just like the revolution cyclists like this. I think it wouldn't happen overnight, but it could happen pretty fast. Actually, to put the paint is quite easy. to rebuild the entire street will take a bit longer. But you know, right now the talks about the Magistrala, about the main roads to Prague, are undergo. There are architects who are actually repainting this part, this important part and ugly part of the city. There is Institute IPR of how to say it in English, of Prague Development, let's say, who are actually helping the public space to change quickly.
Okay.
So once the bikes will be here, the usual answer of the politicians, like why should we do that when no one is using it, will be wiped out, because we could declare, you know, how many users we have, where they were, because there was a project which was also subsidized by EU about the bike counters. If you see on the street something which I don't know how to say in English, kosoštverec, someone help me? Okay, some triangle, whatever, on the street, it's the counter. So when you cross it with the car, it doesn't do anything. When you cross it with the bike, it should take one, and there is some transmission to some server.
Okay.
But it's many times it's broken. So the counts are not very reliable, and so nobody actually knows how many people is using the bike in the city. And for a long time, if you look back to 2012, 13, and so on, it's about 1%, and it didn't move up at all. Okay, it's a 49% in the Amsterdam, it's a 55 in Copenhagen, blah blah blah, but it's about 4 in Warsaw. Wow, Warsaw. Okay, it's flat, but Warsaw. Does the Polish guys use the bike so frequent as Czechs? No. You know, we have the same figure of sold bikes in Czech, about 300,000 a year. So it's 380,000 a year in Poland. They are 4 times bigger. Well, but still they have a higher level of commuting in their cities than we have here in Prague. So this is supposed to be changed, and this is actually our contribution for the forcing the infrastructure to be changed.
Okay. Well, let's have one more. Doesn't work anymore, I guess, the mic. Let's have one more question, because you know, people probably even want to talk to you one-on-one, so I want to give them a chance afterwards. So one more question. Let's pick, for example, the one in the middle. So I'm surprised you're really sharing real-time data with the municipalities. Isn't it the real business model, even though you can share it? Real estate development. Do you understand the question? Yeah. But well, this is connected to the previous question. Okay, so we actually need to share this data, because we need to show up. The people are using the bikes so much and here. So I don't think they are real-time data. I didn't say that. There are some heat maps with the counts, with the statistics, how the system is being used in past months, in past half a year, or something like this. So the real-time data are definitely not shared. Okay.
I think
Cool.
so. Yeah.
Well, that's it. Thank you very much.
All right.
I really appreciate your time and that you shared these insights with us. So if we could give a round of applause to Jakub to come here. Thank you.